All right, so today we're going to break down the measurements of our basic shapes. We are going to space them out evenly, very similar to how we spaced out our value scale evenly with our measurements. So this shouldn't be something new, but we are utilizing the skills that we have previously learned. So for me, I am going to be pressing a little bit harder so you guys can visually see it on my paper, because if I press as light as you guys should, you probably won't be able to see it on the screen. So I'm going to use a 4B pencil just so you can see my lines, but always ensure whenever we are making measurements and things like that, we are always pressing lightly to start on our drawings. Remember, we press lightly on our value scale so we could erase all the extra marks here, the ones that were in the gap between the columns. So same goes for this. But once again, my example, I will be pressing a little bit harder just so you can see it. Everybody's paper is landscape orientation, so longer left to right. That does not matter quite yet. So it doesn't matter how far down you are yet. Right now, we're just trying to figure out whenever your paper is horizontal like this, as well as your ruler, and you're making the measurements, you're creating that vertical line. So you got to kind of think backwards a little bit, but if that's confusing to you, don't think of it that way, but that's kind of how it works. So it doesn't matter where your ruler's lined up, as long as it is somewhere towards the top. And we are making a mark at 1.5 inches. Please make sure that the 0 is lined up with the edge of your paper. Some zeros might be the edge of the ruler, but these Blick longer ones, there's a little gap between the edge of the ruler and the 0. So you're going to make sure that 0, depending on what ruler you're using, is at 0. Okay, so like this ruler though, 0 is the end of the ruler. So I'd line this up on the end. This one, not so much. All right, 1.5 inches is that biggest line between 1 and 2. So I'm just going to make a mark at 1.5. I'm going to leave my ruler and paper exactly where it's at. Now we're going to do subtractive. So there we were going 0 to 1.5, so that's adding. Now we're going to subtract 18 minus 1.5 would be 16.5. 16 and 17, the biggest line between that. Okay, now I'm just going to shift my ruler straight down and make the exact same measurements towards the bottom. Once again, it doesn't matter where your ruler's lined up, because we're only focusing on the vertical line that we are developing. 1.5, 16.5. Same thing, just towards the bottom. You cannot make a straight line without having 2 points. We are trying to make a perfectly straight line that is parallel with the edge of our paper. Okay, now I'm going to rotate my paper, line those 2 points up. Once again, you are pressing lightly. Right now, we are drawing this line right here. That line will be completely erased 100%, but we need to find out where the starting point is for the next measurements across for our sheets. Okay, notice on the final, right now we're drawing this line right here. That line is not visible when the project's all said and done. So make sure you are pressing lightly. But for me, I'm going to press a little bit harder with darker pencil just so you guys can see it on the video. Then you're shifting your ruler straight down to the other location of the lines, going from the top of the paper to the bottom of the paper all the way across, because we don't know where our next measurements are going to line up quite yet, just like we did with our value scales. Okay, now we are going to, once again, since our ruler was on the longer horizontal side, we found our vertical lines. Now we're going to rotate our paper vertically, and we're going to find our horizontal lines that are longer throughout the page. So once again, now this time I'm lining it up right with that line I've already created, because I know that's our stopping point. So line your ruler up with that line that you already previously created. You are now going to make 2 marks that will create 3 sections. Okay, I'm making a mark at I make a mark at 1. Then I'm doing a 3.5 inch gap. So that would then be 4.5, and then that naturally just makes 1.5 because of the end of the paper. So I am lining my ruler up with that previous line I just created, making a mark at 1. 1 plus 3.5 is 4.5. Now I don't need to make a mark for 1.5 because that is just naturally, once again, the end of the paper. So I have made a line at 1 and 4.5. One inch, 3.5 inches, 1.5. Okay. This is very important. You always, whenever making measurements, I always leave my paper exactly in the position it was, leave my ruler in the position it was, and I'm just going to shift my paper straight down to the other side. If I rotate my paper like this, what I'm doing on my screen right now, that would give us 1 on this side, when on the other side, that would be 1.5. So it wouldn't line up and your lines would be crooked. So nobody should be twisting their paper like this. You are only having your measurements here and shifting your paper straight down or your ruler straight down, leaving it where it originally kind of was. Okay, so now once again, I am making a mark at 1 and 4.5. If you twisted and rotated your paper like mentioned, then your 1.5 and 1 would be flip-flopped, and then your lines would be crooked. All right. Now you have your 1 inch marks here, 3.5 inches from there. You need once again, 2 points to create a straight line. Line your ruler up. Only draw from the edge of the first line to the edge of the second line. You do not need to go all the way to the edge of the paper this time because we know where our stopping point is located. If you do go all the way through, that's fine, but you're just creating more work on yourself because you're going to have to erase, and then you're running the risk of craftsmanship and losing points there. We do not want that. Okay, now you can go ahead and erase those extra lines. We are pressing lightly so we can get rid of it entirely. Once again, the marks on my example are darker than what yours should be because I am pressing harder and using a darker pencil so you all can see it effectively. And once again, all said and done, even though we have this rectangle right now, you do not see that on the final. All right, now we need to get our measurements from left to right. This is going to be pretty easy. You just go each shape that we're going to create, sphere, cylinder, cube, and cone, each one that we're going to make is going to be 3 inches wide with a 1 inch gap between each object. Okay? Some of our objects will be a little bit smaller, like our cylinder and our cone, but it's going to be in that 3 inch section. So you're going to measure at the top, 3, 1, 3, 1, 3, 1, 3. Do the same thing at the bottom, 3, 1, 3, 1, 3, 1, 3. And then you're going to get those perfect vertical lines to separate and space out our objects equally.
So 3 starting at the line.
3 starting at the line that was created, yes. So line your ruler up with that inside line that you already created, that rectangle with pencil. So I am perfectly lined up straight across. I am starting at 3. 3 plus 1 is 4.
Wait, what? Oh.
I'll make my lines a little bit bigger on the example, but you do not need to make your lines this big because you'll need to erase them.
More than 4 boxes. And then how many boxes are supposed to be?
There's going to be 4 boxes, but then there's going to be 3 gaps between the 4 boxes.
I did it wrong. I didn't do it right. I was on 4. This is not 3 inches.
I'll be right over. 3, 4, 4 plus 3, 7, 7 plus 1, 8, 8 plus 3, 11, 11 plus 1, 12, 3 plus 12, 15, but I don't need to make a mark there because that just naturally created it with the line you already have. Yes. Now, once again, it is important that you only shift your ruler straight down. If I were to flip my paper over because I'm doing the other line, technically would work, but just to get in the habit, sometimes it will work, sometimes it won't if we're doing different measurements. So just shift your ruler straight down, leaving your paper exactly where it's at. Line up at the edge of the pencil rectangle box that you've already created. 3, 1, 3, 1, 3, 1, and done. Okay, now you can line your ruler up. Once again, I like to kind of make that pivot joint, so I put my pencil at the mark, and then I only have to worry about finding that one other location. Pressing lightly, straight down, shift over, straight down. Everybody should be pressing lightly so these can be erased. The only lines you won't erase, if you notice on the cube, those blue lines are physically on the black lines, but every single other line will be erased. All these black lines are erased. So your sphere is going to go here, cylinder, cube, cone. Now for the circle, which will eventually become a sphere, talking about our elements of art, circle, square, rectangle, triangle, oval, those are all shapes. So those are like flat shapes. Now when you add value to them, a circle would turn into a sphere or like a ball. A triangle with the bottom rounded out would turn into a cone. A regular triangle in 3-dimensional form would become a pyramid. A square would become a cube. So you have your shapes, but then you can turn those into forms. When we create our circle to become a sphere, we are going to use a compass, but we need to find the middle point, because if we don't know where the middle point's at, then it might not be centered correctly. So what we're going to do is, we'll start this way. Inside that 3-inch box that you've already created, you need to find the halfway point. So half of 3 is 1.5. So you're going to make a mark at 1.5. Shift your ruler straight down, leaving your paper where it's at. Mark at 1.5. Now we don't need to draw a line all the way through. We just need to understand kind of the middle's at. So I know the middle is probably going to be somewhere around here. So I'm just going to draw a really light line and throw it in the middle. It's high enough up, it's low enough down, knowing that I've made the line big enough to find the other opposite end of the middle, but I don't need to go all the way through because I absolutely know the middle isn't going to be towards the top or towards the bottom. Now I'm going to shift my paper over. Now this time it's 3.5. So half of 3.5 is going to be a measurement we haven't used yet, but it's going to be 1.75. So here's the middle 1.5. The next biggest line is going to be your 1.75 working in 0.25 increments. So 1.75 plus 1.75 would mean it is 3.5. So I'm going to make a mark at 1.75, which is like the next biggest line between 1.5 and 2. Okay, and then I'm going to do the same thing on the other side of this 3-inch box or square. Now I can line my ruler up this way. So I found the side here and the side here. Now this time you don't need to make a line because we are finding out the other half of the middle. So all I have to do is just make a point right there. And that is the middle of our square. And you can erase, since you press lightly, it'll go away entirely. And I found the crosshairs. So if you're into video games and all that, you have crosshairs, and that's the center point. So this would be that center point crosshair. Okay, we're going to make a cylinder now. It's going to be a little bit skinnier than the 3 inches, so we're going to make it a 2-inch wide cylinder. So at the top, you're going to go over 0.5 on either side. So over 0.5 here, which would be line your 0 up at this line that you already currently have. Mark at 0.5, and then you'll go in negative the opposite way. So positive 0, 1, 0 plus 0.5 is 0.5. 3 minus 0.5 would be 2.5. So instead of moving your ruler and being like, here's 0.5 here, here's 0.5 here, that's just a lot of extra work. You can do it both at the same time. Once again, 0.5 and 2.5, using that additive and subtractive measurements. Shift your ruler straight down. 0.5, 2.5. Then we're going to do the exact same thing for the cone. So while we're at that, and that's fresh in our mind, we are only going to do that for the bottom because the cone comes to a point. So it doesn't matter where the 0.5 is up here or up here. We're just going to make 2 points at the bottom. .5, 2.5. Now that's just going to give us the width of the base of the cone. But for our cone, we need to make sure it's not wonky this way or lopsided that way. So we need to find the center point so we have a perfect connection to the middle. We need to find the center point. Half of 3 is 1.5. Now it's time to draw our shapes. We have all our measurements down.
What about the square?
So we don't necessarily need to make any measurements for the square because you can see the black line through the blue line. We've already created that square. We're just going to then develop the cube out of it to show that three-dimensional aspect, which we'll do when we get to drawing. Okay, let's go ahead and start with the cylinder. I'll pass out the compass after we get through all the other shapes. So we'll go ahead and start with the cylinder. You already have your 0.5 measurements, 0.5 and 2.5 on the top and bottom. So now just go ahead and connect those lines Once again, always ensure that you're pressing lightly, but this is the actual shape that is going to be developed. All right. So now we need to find the ellipse. Whenever we have a cylinder, if you look at it directly from above, it would be a perfect circle. But then when you start to tilt it like that, it becomes an ellipse. So it's not a perfect circle. So even though you might think of it like that and you're looking directly down on it, when we shade it, I'll pull out the cylinder and we'll kind of look at it physically in three-dimensional form. But whenever you have something, like you see the very top of my hand, you see my entire top of my hand, but when I start to turn it, you start to lose sight of the part that you can't see anymore. Okay, so if you see my palm, now it's coming less and less in a different perspective. So I guess we do need to measure a little bit more. We need to find the middle point of that cylinder, so we have a perfect ellipse. So I'm lining my ruler up with 0 to 2 inside that 2-inch wide cylinder, finding 1 inch. I'll come help you out. Shifting our ruler straight down, making a mark again at 1 for the bottom ellipse. Now you don't need to connect these lines. This is just to find the center point so we know exactly where the middle of our ellipse is going to be located. The top, we physically see the top of our cylinder. We don't see the bottom of our cylinder because it is an opaque object like my hand. Once my hand covers something up, you can't see what's behind it. So yes, there is that ellipse on the backside there, but we physically can't see it in life since it is not transparent or glass or something of that nature. So let's go ahead and draw those ellipses as best you can. The distance you go up is the distance you go down. If you want to be super precise, you can line your ruler up at 0.25, and then you can go up 0.25 and down 0.25. You want to get super precise, and then you'll know to connect that high and then do that curvature there. And then create that same curvature on the other side, meeting up with the other line. Curl it around a little bit on either side. And then do the exact same thing to that 0.25 mark below. And then that should help you ensure that you have a sufficient ellipse at the angle and perspective that we see. Okay? Now, once again, you line up and do 0.25 up and 0.25 down, but you're not going to see the backside of this ellipse because it is not transparent. So then we just come in and draw the bottom one. So sometimes if something's like transparent or see-through, you might see somebody do like a dashed line like that. But you do not need to draw that because we don't physically see it when we shape these. Okay, now you can erase your extra lines, so we don't need this line anymore because that's not part of our cylinder. We don't need this bottom line anymore. And then this curvature is the same as this curvature, doing the same shape, and then this one is the same, just going the opposite direction. So if I took my hand on this one and just flipped it over like that, then that would be equal. Okay, we have our first shape. And we are running out of time a little bit, so we'll do our next easiest shape, and that will be our cone. You are going from that middle point at the top, connecting it to either side that we did the 0.5, and then you should get a perfect cone or triangle at this point, but we're going to turn it into a cone by creating that same ellipse idea that we did with our cylinder. So lining the bottom up to the 2 mark, making a mark at 1.
How far do we go into the bottom?
Hang on. So we went in 1 inch for the middle. We went down 0.25, just like we did for the cylinder. And then you can create that curvature cone and erase that inside part.